the collision, Damian Cross adjusted his platinum cufflinks for the third time, his steel-gray eyes scanning the mirror with mechanical precision. Every strand of his dark hair was perfectly positioned, his charcoal suit pressed to razor sharp. Perfection. At 32, he was the youngest CEO in Cross Industries' 50-year history, and he wore success like armor. The penthouse apartment reflected his personality: minimalist, controlled, cold, no clutter, no chaos, no room for error. Everything had its place, just like every aspect of his life. He glanced at his Rolex. 7 minutes until his driver arrived. Perfect timing, as always. His phone buzzed with a message from Blake, his assistant. Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. Coffee with investors at 10:30. Damian's jaw tightened. Changes in schedule made him uncomfortable, but he adapted. Control was everything, Theodore. Cross had raised his son with iron discipline after his wife's death when Damian was 12. Emotions are weakness. His father had drilled into him. Success requires sacrifice. Women are distractions that destroy empires. These lessons had shaped Damian into a fortress of a man impenetrable and untouchable. At 32, Damian had never been in love. He'd never even been intimate with a woman. His father's warnings, combined with his natural tendency toward control, had created barriers he never questioned. Business was his passion, success his only lover. The charity gala that evening was another obligation, another performance. Damian moved through the glittering crowd like a shark through water, making the right connections, saying the right words. His presence commanded respect, his reputation preceding him like a shadow. "Mr. Cross." "Wonderful to see you," gushed Mrs. Wellington. A major donor. Her daughter Priscilla stood beside her, perfectly groomed and predictably boring. "Priscilla was just saying how much she admires your work in sustainable architecture." Damian nodded politely, his mind already calculating how quickly he could escape this conversation. These women were all the same: perfectly acceptable, thoroughly predictable, and completely forgettable. They fit the mold his father approved of, but they stirred nothing in him. The auction was beginning when chaos arrived in the form of Violet. Storm. She burst through the ballroom doors like a hurricane, her wild auburn hair catching the light, her emerald dress hugging curves that made Damian's breath catch. She was late, flustered, and absolutely magnetic. Camera equipment hung from her shoulder. She was clearly the event photographer, not a guest. Sorry," she called out, her voice carrying across the room. Traffic was insane, and then my GPS decided to have a mental breakdown. Damian watched, transfixed, as she moved through the crowd. She was everything his world wasn't: spontaneous, vibrant, alive. Her laughter rang out as she chatted with guests while setting up her equipment, and something stirred in his chest that he didn't recognize. Their collision was inevitable and spectacular. Damian was stepping back from the bar when Violet, focused on adjusting her camera settings, walked straight into him. The impact sent her stumbling, her camera flying. Damian's reflexes kicked, an arm shooting out to steady her while simultaneously catching her expensive equipment. For a moment, they were frozen. Her hands gripped his forearms, her face tilted up toward his. Her eyes were the color of forest depths, flecked with gold, and they were staring directly into his soul. The scent of her perfume, something wild and intoxicating, filled his senses. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she breathed, her cheeks flushing pink. "I wasn't watching where I was going. Are you hurt? Please tell me I didn't break any of your expensive bones." Her joke caught him off guard. Women usually treated him with reverence or calculated interest. This one was concerned about his welfare and making him almost ... smile. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "Your camera appears to have survived as well, my hero," she said with a grin that made his heart skip. "I'm Violet, by the way. Violet Storm. And you're clearly someone important because you're wearing a suit that probably costs more than my rent." "Damian Cross," he replied, still holding her steady. Her eyes widened. "The Damian Cross, CEO of Cross Industries? Amen. Who never smiles and supposedly has ice water in his veins." "That's quite a reputation," he said dryly.
Is it true?"
she asked, tilting her head with genuine curiosity. About the ice water? For the first time in years, Damian felt heat flood his system. Standing this close to her, feeling her warmth, breathing in her scent, he was discovering that his blood ran quite hot indeed. "Perhaps you'd like to find out," he heard himself say, the words escaping before his logical mind could stop them. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Is Damian Cross actually flirting with me? Because I should probably document this historic moment." Reality crashed back. He was at a public event surrounded by business associates and potential partners. This woman was dangerous to his carefully constructed image. He stepped back, his walls slamming into place. "I should let you return to your work," he said coolly. The light in her eyes dimmed slightly, but her smile never wavered. "Of course, you can't have the Ice King melting in public." She moved away. But Damian couldn't stop watching her. She worked the room like an artist, capturing candid moments and genuine emotions. She made people laugh, put them at ease, drew out their authentic selves. She was everything he wasn't allowed to be. For the first time in his life, Damian Cross wanted something more than success. The awakening throughout the evening, Damian found himself tracking Violet's movements. She photographed the auction winners, the dancing couples, the quiet conversations in corners. Every so often, their eyes would meet across the room, and electricity would arc between them. During the dinner portion, Damian found himself seated at the head table, going through the motions of polite conversation while his attention wandered to the photographer weaving between tables. She captured a moment between an elderly couple, their hands intertwined, their eyes full of decades of love. The tenderness in her expression as she lowered her camera made something twist in his chest. "You seem distracted tonight," commented Harrison Webb, a business rival seated to his left. "It's not like the focused Damian Cross we all know." "Just observing," Damian replied evenly. "The photographer." Harrison's smile was knowing. "She's quite striking, though I hear she's not exactly your type. Too wild, too unpredictable. Your father would never approve." The casual mention of his father's approval made Damian's jaw clench. "My personal life isn't up for discussion." "Of course not," Harrison chuckled. "Though I must say, watching you watch her has been the most interesting part of the evening." Heat crept up Damian's neck. Had he been that obvious? His carefully maintained control was slipping, and it terrified him. After dinner, he stepped onto the terrace for air. The city sparkled below, and the cool night breeze helped clear his head. He needed to regain his equilibrium, to remember who he was and what mattered. Hiding from the masses, he turned to find Violet approaching, her camera hanging casually from her wrist. She'd removed her heels and was walking barefoot, her dress flowing around her legs. Taking a moment, he said carefully, "Me too. These events can be overwhelming, all that forced perfection." She joined him at the railing, her bare shoulder nearly touching his arm. "Though I have to say, you seem to thrive in that environment. It's what I know, but is it what you want?" The question caught him off guard. Want. He'd been trained not to want, only to achieve. "What I want is irrelevant," he said finally. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." Her voice was soft, compassionate. "Everyone deserves to want things, to feel things, to live." "And what do you want, Violet Storm?" She was quiet for a moment, her fingers trailing along the railing. "To capture truth, to show people the beauty and authenticity in being real. To prove that imperfection is more beautiful than any artificial perfection. That's very idealistic. It's very cynical," she countered with a smile.
"Oh.
"Though I suspect there's more to you than the Ice King persona." "What makes you think that?" "The way you looked at me when we collided. For just a moment, your mask slipped, and I saw something real underneath. Something hungry." Her words sent fire through his veins. Hungry, yes, that was exactly what he felt around her. A hunger he'd never experienced, never allowed himself to feel. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Don't I?" She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the golden flecks in her eyes. "I think you've spent so long following rules that you've forgotten what it feels like to want something just because it makes you feel alive. Feelings complicate things. Feelings are what make us human. They stood in silence, the tension between them crackling like electricity. Damian felt himself being pulled toward her, drawn by something primal and undeniable. His hand moved without conscious thought, reaching up to touch her cheek. Her skin was warm, soft as silk. She leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment. When she opened them again, they were dark with an emotion he didn't recognize, but desperately wanted to explore. "This is dangerous," he whispered. "The best things usually are." Before he could lose his nerve, before logic could reassert itself, he leaned down and captured her lips with his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but when she responded by threading her fingers through his hair, something broke open inside him. He kissed her with years of pent-up longing, with a passion he didn't know he possessed. She tasted like champagne and promises, like everything he'd denied himself. Her body molded against his, soft curves against hard planes, and he understood, for the first time, what his father had warned him about. This woman could destroy his control completely. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Violet's lips were swollen, her hair mussed from his fingers. She looked thoroughly kissed and absolutely beautiful. She breathed. For someone with ice water in his veins, you certainly know how to heat things up. Reality crashed over him like cold water. He'd kissed her in public, where anyone could have seen. He'd lost control, shown weakness, proved his father right about the dangers of desire. This was a mistake, he said, stepping back. The hurt that flashed across her face cut him deeper than any business failure ever had. It felt pretty. Perfect to me. You don't understand. I can't. This can't happen. Why? Because your father wouldn't approve. Because it doesn't fit your perfect image? Her words hit too close to home. Because it's complicated. Life is complicated, Damian. That doesn't mean we should hide from it. I should go. Running away. That doesn't seem like the powerful CEO I've heard about. Her challenge sparked something in him, but he forced it down. "Good night, Miss Storm." He walked away, every step feeling like he was leaving a piece of himself behind. But as he reached the door, her voice stopped him. "This isn't over, Damian Cross. You can't kiss me like that and then pretend it didn't matter." He didn't turn around, didn't trust himself to speak. But deep down, he knew she was right. Something had awakened in him tonight, something that couldn't be easily buried. As his driver pulled away from the hotel, Damian stared out at the city lights and tried to convince himself that he could return to his controlled existence. But the taste of her lips, the feel of her in his arms, the way she'd looked at him, like he was a man worth knowing, rather than just a title worth respecting it, had changed something fundamental. For the first time in his life, Damian Cross wanted something more than success. He wanted the woman who'd crashed into his world and shown him what he'd been missing. The question was whether he had the courage to reach for it. The struggle 3 days passed since the charity gala, and Damian Cross was losing his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw emerald depths and felt soft lips beneath his. Every time he tried to focus on work, his thoughts drifted to auburn hair and the way Violet had whispered his name. He'd thrown himself into business with renewed intensity, scheduling back-to-back meetings, reviewing contracts until his eyes burned anything to stop thinking about her. But his usual methods of control were failing him spectacularly. "You've been staring at that report for 20 minutes without turning a page," Blake observed from the doorway of his office. Damian looked up, realizing his assistant was right. The quarterly earnings report might as well have been written in hieroglyphics for all the attention he'd been paying it. "I'm fine," he said curtly. "Of course, sir, though I should mention. That Violet Storm called this morning. She said something about needing to discuss the photos from the charity event." Damian's pulse spiked. "What did you tell her? You were in meetings all week, she seemed, ... disappointed." The thought of disappointing her twisted something in his chest. "Did she leave a number?" "She said she'd try again later." Hesitated. "Sir, if you don't mind me saying, you haven't been yourself since the gala. Perhaps you should take some time." "I said I'm fine," Damian snapped, then immediately regretted his tone. Blake had been with him for 5 years and didn't deserve his frustration. "I'm sorry, it's just ... complicated." Blake nodded knowingly and left him alone with his thoughts. That afternoon, Damian found himself standing outside a small gallery. In the arts district, he'd looked up Violet's work online, discovering she was more than just an event photographer. She was an artist, capturing raw human emotion in every frame. The gallery was showcasing her latest exhibition, Unguarded Moments. Each photograph told a story: a child's wonder at soap bubbles, an elderly man feeding pigeons, a young couple sharing their first kiss. "She sees people," said a voice behind him. Damian turned to find an elderly woman studying the same photograph he'd been examining. Not just their surfaces, but their souls. "Yes," Damian agreed quietly. "She does. Are you a fan of her work?" "I'm getting to know it," the woman smiled. "She's here tonight, you know. The artist's reception starts at 7. Damian's heart rate accelerated. Checked his watch. 6:45 p.m. He should leave, go back to his safe, controlled world. Instead, he found himself waiting. When Violet arrived, she took his breath away. She wore a simple black dress that somehow made her look both elegant and approachable. Her hair was swept back, revealing the graceful curve of her neck, and when she smiled at the gathering crowd, Damian felt that familiar pull in his chest. She was in her element here, discussing her work with passion and authenticity. Damian watched from the shadows, afraid to approach, but unable to leave. "The goal isn't perfection," she was saying to a small group. "It's truth. When we stop trying to be perfect, we become real. And real is always more beautiful." Her words hit him like a physical blow. He'd spent his entire life pursuing perfection, and here she was, suggesting it was all wrong. Damian. He turned to find her standing beside him, her eyes wide with surprise and something else, hope. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said softly. "I wanted to see your work. What do you think?" He looked around at the photographs, each one capturing something he'd been taught to suppress: emotion, vulnerability, humanity. "It's revolutionary," he said finally. "You make imperfection look ... beautiful." Her smile was radiant.
"That's
the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my work." "Violet about the other night, Mr. Cross?" They both turned to see Theodore Cross approaching, his face set in disapproving lines. Damian's blood ran cold. His father hadn't mentioned being in town. "Father, I didn't know you were in the city, obviously." Theodore's cold gaze swept over Violet, dismissing her in an instant. "We need to talk now. I'm in the middle of now, Damian." The command in his father's voice triggered years of conditioning. Damian found himself nodding, even as he hated himself for it. "I'm sorry," he said to Violet. "I have to go." The disappointment in her eyes was devastating, but his father was already walking away, expecting to be followed. In the car, Theodore's lecture began immediately. "I've been hearing disturbing rumors about you and some photographer. Tell me they're not true. My personal life is my own business." "Nothing about your life is your own business, Damian." The face of Cross Industries. "Every decision you make reflects on the company, on our family name. It's not what you think. She's exactly what I think. A distraction, a weakness. I've seen the way you look at her. You're becoming soft, unfocused, just like your mother." The mention of his mother made Damian flinch. "Don't bring her into this. Your mother was ruled by her emotions, and look where it got her. Dead at 35 from a heart attack brought on by stress and disappointment. Is that what you want? That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Damian. It's about making hard choices. You can have your little artist, or you can have your legacy. But you can't have both." The ultimatum hung between them like a blade. Back at the gallery, Violet stood alone, staring at the photograph of the elderly couple she'd captured at the charity gala. Their love story was written in every wrinkle, every gentle touch, every shared glance. "He'll come back." The elderly woman from earlier appeared beside her. "When a man looks at a woman the way he looked at you, he always comes back." "He shouldn't have to choose," Violet said quietly. "The best love stories are the ones where someone has to fight for it. He just needs to figure out that you're worth fighting for." Violet touched the photograph gently. "What if he doesn't? Then he's a fool, and you're better off without him." But even as she nodded, Violet's heart was breaking. She'd seen the real Damian Cross beneath the ice, felt his hunger, his longing. She'd tasted his passion and glimpsed his soul. She just hoped he'd find the courage to choose love over fear. Because for the first time in her life, Violet Storm was ready to fight for something and someone she believed in. The choice the next 2 weeks were torture for Damian. His father had decided to extend his stay in the city, monitoring his son's every move. Board meetings, investor dinners, charity functions. Theodore orchestrated Damian's schedule with military precision, leaving no room for personal time or wayward thoughts. But Violet haunted him anyway. He found himself thinking of her laugh during important presentations, remembering the feel of her lips when he should have been analyzing profit margins. Her exhibition reviews were glowing, and he read every one, feeling pride and longing in equal measure. "The Henderson merger is on the table," Theodore announced over breakfast in Damian's apartment. "Victoria Henderson is quite taken with you. She'd make an excellent wife. Pedigree, connections, complete understanding of the business world." Damian's coffee turned bitter in his mouth. Victoria Henderson was everything his father wanted in a daughter-in-law: cold, calculating, and utterly forgettable. "I'm not interested in marriage. You're 32, Damian. It's time to think about legacy, about the next generation. Victoria would be perfect for producing heirs who understand their responsibilities." The clinical way his father discussed marriage made Damian's stomach turn. "She's not. I don't feel anything for her." Feelings. Theodore's laugh was harsh. "Felt things for your mother, and look how that ended. Love is a luxury we can't afford. Duty, responsibility, legacy, these are what matter. What if I want more? Then you're weak, just like she was." The words hit like a physical blow. Damian set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. "Don't talk about her like that. I'll talk about her however I want. She was my wife, and her emotional instability nearly destroyed everything I built. I won't let you make the same mistake. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. She was the only thing that made you human." Theodore's face darkened. "Humanity is a liability in our world, Damian. The sooner you learn that, the better." After his father left, Damian stood alone in his pristine apartment, surrounded by the symbols of his success. But for the first time, they felt like prison bars. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your work is in the newspaper. I thought you should see it." Damian's heart raced as he opened the attached image. It was from the business section, but the photo that caught his attention wasn't of him. It was one of Violet's photographs from the charity gala, the elderly couple he'd watched her capture. Their hands intertwined, their eyes full of love. The caption read, "Local photographer Violet Storm captures the essence of true partnership." At recent charity event, Storm's work reminds us that behind every successful person is often a love story worth telling. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here was proof of everything he'd been taught to avoid, and it was being celebrated as beautiful. He called Blake immediately. "I need Violet Storm's address." "Sir, your father specifically said I don't care." "What my father said. Get me her address." An hour later, Damian stood outside a converted warehouse in the Arts District, his hands shaking as he pressed the buzzer for Violet's loft. "Yes." Her voice through the intercom sent warmth through his chest. "It's Damian." A long pause. "What are you doing here? I need to talk to you." "I don't think that's a good idea. Please, Violet." 5 minutes. The door buzzed open. Her loft was everything his apartment wasn't. Warm, cluttered, alive. Photographs covered every surface. Plants thrived in the abundant sunlight, and the scent of coffee and creativity filled the air. Violet stood in the center of it all, wearing paint-splattered jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She'd never looked more beautiful. "Nice place," he said, looking around. "It's not much, but it's mine." Maintaining distance, maintaining distance. "What do you want, Damian?" "What's all the article?" "Your photograph, which one?" "The couple from the gala. The one with their hands intertwined." Her expression softened slightly. "They've been married for 57 years. He still brings her coffee in bed every morning." "How do you know that?" I asked them. "I always ask about the story behind the moment." She studied his face. "What's your story, Damian?" "I don't have one. Everyone has a story. Mine's not." "Worth telling? Try me." For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Then, slowly, Damian began to speak. My mother died when I was 12. Attack. My father said it was because she let her emotions control her, that she was too weak to handle the pressure of our world. We've spent the next 20 years making sure I didn't make the same mistake. I'm sorry I've never been in love. Never. Been intimate with anyone. Never let anyone close enough to matter. He met her eyes. Until you. Her breath caught. Damian, ... double quotes, I can't stop thinking about you. About the way you make me feel. About the way you see the world like it's full of beauty instead of just opportunities to exploit. Then don't stop. It's not that simple. My father, your father, is afraid. He's practical. He's afraid, she repeated firmly. He's afraid that if you find something real, something worth more than money and power, you'll realize that. His way isn't the only way. That maybe your mother wasn't weak. Maybe she was the strongest person he ever knew. Her words hit him like lightning, illuminating truths he'd been too afraid to see. I don't know how to be different, he admitted. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just ... choose one thing, one moment, one feeling, and see where it leads. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the hope in her eyes. Choose me, she whispered. Choose this. Choose us. Damian felt himself standing at a crossroads. The weight of his father's expectations on one side and the promise of something real on the other. For 32 years, he'd chosen duty over desire, control over chaos, fear over love. His phone rang. Theodore's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Violet said quietly. But remember, you get to choose what you say. Damian looked at her, then at the phone, then back at her. Slowly, he reached out and turned the phone off. I choose you, he said, his voice steady for the first time in weeks. And when she smiled, radiant and full of joy, Damian Cross finally understood what his father had been so afraid of. This feeling, this love, this complete surrender of control, it was terrifying. It was also the most alive he'd ever felt. What? He asked. Now we figure it out together. She reached for his hand and he didn't pull away. For the first time in his life, Damian Cross was ready to write his own story, one that included love, imperfection, and the courage to feel. The transformation 6 months later. Damian Cross stood in the same gallery where he'd first seen Violet's work. But everything had changed. The sterile businessman who'd once viewed emotions as weakness was gone, replaced by a man who'd learned to embrace both his vulnerabilities and his strengths. Are you nervous? Violet asked, adjusting his tie with gentle fingers. Terrified, he admitted with a smile that would have shocked his former self. But it's a good kind of terrified. Tonight was the opening of their joint exhibition, Controlled Chaos, When Business Meets Art. It was an unprecedented collaboration between Cross Industries and local artists, providing funding and gallery space for emerging talent, while showcasing how creativity could enhance corporate culture. Mr. Cross, Blake approached. Tablet in hand, the mayor is here, along with representatives from 3 major art foundations. The Times wants an interview, and Blake, Damian interrupted gently. Take a breath. It's going to be fine. His assistant blinked in surprise. 6 months ago, Damian would have been barking orders and demanding minute-by-minute updates. Now he squeezed Violet's hand and said, We'll handle the interviews together. Together? Blake looked between them. Blake, I'd like you to meet Violet Storm. My partner in business and in life. The words felt natural now, though they'd taken months to reach this point. The journey hadn't been easy. Theodore's reaction to Damian's choice had been explosive. Threats, ultimatums, and finally, a complete withdrawal of support. For a terrifying month, Damian had faced the possibility of losing everything he'd built. But something remarkable had happened. Without his father's controlling influence, Damian had discovered he was an even better businessman than he'd ever imagined. His willingness to take creative risks, to see employees as people rather than resources, to consider the human element in every decision, it had revolutionized Cross Industries. Stock prices had soared. Employee satisfaction had reached record highs, and for the first time in the company's history, they were featured in publications for their innovative approach to corporate culture. You've changed everything, Harrison Webb had grudgingly admitted at a recent board meeting. I hate to say it, but your father's methods were holding you back. Damian had smiled, something he did a lot more of these days. The best decisions are the ones that scare you a little. Now, as he watched Violet move through the gallery crowd with her natural grace, making everyone feel welcome and valued, he marveled at how much his life had transformed. Damian, he turned to see an elderly couple approaching the same couple. From Violet's famous photograph at the charity gala, their hands were still intertwined, their eyes still full of love. "We had to come," the woman said, beaming. "When we saw that our picture helped bring you two together, we knew we had to meet you properly." "How did you know?" Damian asked. "Oh dear," the woman laughed. "It was in all the papers. Ice King Melts for Love was our favorite headline." Damian winced slightly, but Violet squeezed his hand. "I actually love that one," she said, very dramatic. 58 years next month," the man said proudly. "And I can tell you, young man, you've made the right choice. Love isn't a weakness, it's the source of all our strength." As the couple moved on, Damian felt Violet's eyes on him. "Any regrets?" she asked quietly. "Only one," he said, then smiled at her alarmed expression. "I regret waiting so long to find you." The evening was a tremendous success. Art critics raved about the innovative collaboration. Business leaders praised the forward-thinking approach, and several other companies expressed interest in similar partnerships. But the moment that mattered most came near the end of the evening, when Damian spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. Theodore Cross stood near the entrance, his face unreadable as he surveyed the scene. "Go," Violet said, having noticed him too. "I'll be right here." Damian approached his father slowly, unsure of what to expect. "The turnout is impressive," Theodore said without preamble. "It is. Stock prices are up 18% since this partnership began." "They are." Theodore was quiet for a long moment, watching as Violet laughed with a group of artists, her joy infectious. "She's nothing like what I expected." "What did you expect? A gold digger, manipulator, someone who would destroy everything we built?" Theodore's voice was softer than Damian had heard it in years. "But she's made you stronger, hasn't she?" "Yes, she has." "Your mother would have liked her." Admission hung between them like a bridge. Damian felt tears prick his eyes. "Dad, ... I was wrong," Theodore said quietly. "About your mother. About emotions. About you." He looked at his son with something that might have been pride. "I was so afraid of losing you the way I lost her, that I nearly lost you anyway. You didn't lose me. You taught me discipline, focus, the importance of hard work. Those lessons matter. I just ... I found a way to balance them with something else. Love. Love." Theodore nodded slowly. "Perhaps it's time I learned that balance too." As if summoned by their conversation, Violet appeared at Damian's side, extending her hand. "It's an honor to finally meet you properly." Theodore studied her for a moment, then surprised them both by taking her hand in both of his. "The honor is mine, my dear. And it's Theodore, please. After all, you're family now." Later that night, as they cleaned up the gallery together, Violet and Damian reflected on the evening's success. "I still can't believe your father called me family," Violet said, carefully wrapping a photograph. "I can't believe a lot of things about this year," Damian replied, pulling her into his arms. 6 months ago, I thought I knew exactly what my life would look like, controlled, predictable, safe, and now I know that the best things in life are the ones you can't plan for. The ones that crash into you when you least expect it. Like a clumsy photographer at a charity gala. Like a beautiful woman who saw through my walls and decided I was worth saving. You saved yourself, Damian. I just showed you that you were worth saving." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring all his love and gratitude into the gesture. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "I love you, Violet Storm," he said, the words coming as naturally as breathing. "I love you too, Damian Cross." Ice King turned warm-hearted man. "Former Ice King," he corrected with a grin. "Former Virgin CEO," she teased back. "Probably shouldn't put that on the business cards." "Probably not." As they turned off the lights and prepared to leave, Damian caught sight of their reflection in the gallery window. They looked like what they were to people who'd found something real in a world full of artifice. Two souls who'd learned that love wasn't a weakness, but the greatest strength of all. "What are you thinking about?" Violet asked, following. His gaze just ... everything. How different my life is now. How much better it is. No regrets about giving up the perfect control. "Perfect control is overrated," he said, wrapping his arm around her waist. "Perfect love is much more interesting." They walked out into the night together, ready to face whatever came next. Behind them, the gallery stood empty, but somehow still full of the joy and connection they'd created. And in the window, barely visible in the reflection, was the photograph that had started it, all the elderly couple with their intertwined hands, a testament to the power of love that lasts. 6 months later, Damian Cross and Violet Storm were married in a small ceremony. In the same gallery where they'd first admitted their love. The elderly couple was there, of course, along with Theodore, who walked Violet down the aisle when her own father couldn't make it from overseas. Blake served as best man, still slightly bewildered by his boss's transformation, but wholly supportive. "You know," Violet said as they danced to their first song as husband and wife, "I never did get to properly document that historic moment when the Ice King first melted." "Which moment was that?" "The first time you smiled at me. Really smiled, not that polite business smile." "I think I know the one," Damian said, spinning her gently. "It was when you called me your hero for catching your camera." "That was it." "Exactly. I should have taken a picture." "We'll have plenty of pictures," he promised. "A lifetime of them. A lifetime of controlled chaos. The best kind." As they danced, surrounded by friends and family, Damian reflected on how completely his life had changed. He'd gone from a man who'd never been touched by love to someone who couldn't imagine living without it. From someone who feared emotion to someone who embraced it. From the Ice King to simply ... himself. The transformation was complete. But the best part was that it was just the beginning. The end.